There comes a moment in every life when strength runs thin, when courage feels borrowed, and when the world seems to ask more than we can offer. In those moments, it is not weakness to pause. It is not failure to bend. It is the quiet wisdom of the soul whispering, "Place it in God's hand." For the hand that shaped mountains, softened oceans, and breathed life into your lungs is more than capable of carrying the weight you cannot. Too often we hold on to burdens that were never meant for us. We replay conversations, we fight invisible battles, we wrestle with fear as if it were a companion meant to stay. But there is a higher place to rest your worries, a divine space where chaos cannot find you. And when you surrender what hurts you, what frightens you, what confuses you, you make room for what heals. Putting everything in God's hand is not about giving up. It is about rising up. It is a declaration that you are not walking this life alone. It is a promise that even when the path is dark, a light you cannot see is still guiding you. Blessings have a way of arriving quietly, like dawn after the longest night, but they always arrive right on time. When you trust God with your plans, you begin to see that delays are protection, detours are direction, and disappointment is often preparation. You learn that the doors that close are not punishment, they are salvation. And the doors that open are not accidents, they are alignment. In the hands of the divine, every moment becomes purposeful. So lift your head, unclench your heart, release the grip of yesterday, everything you are carrying. Place it gently where miracles are born. Let faith be your roadmap, let hope be your companion, and let trust be the bridge that leads you forward. When you put everything in God's hand, you discover something sacred, that God has always been holding you. There is a profound shift that happens when a person realizes that surrender is not a collapse, but a rising. We live in a world that constantly tells us to fight harder, to push further, to carry everything on our own shoulders as if exhaustion were a badge of honor. But there comes a moment when your spirit whispers a truth louder than the noise around you. You were not designed to carry every burden alone. Surrendering what overwhelms you does not mean you are incapable. It means you are wise enough to recognize that true strength lies in knowing when to release what was never yours to hold in the first place. To surrender is to step out of the weight of self-reliance and into the quiet certainty that a power greater than you stands ready to lift what you can no longer bear. When you choose surrender, you are not quitting the journey. You are choosing a better guide for it. You are understanding that strength is not measured by how long you hold on, but by the courage it takes to unclench your hands. Many people remain trapped in cycles of worry because they fear that letting go means losing control. But the reality is that control was always an illusion. There are forces moving around you, through you, and beyond you that you cannot see. When you surrender to God, you are not giving away power. You are aligning with the greatest power that exists. You are stepping out of the storm and into the shelter, trusting that even when you do not know the next step, the one who holds your future does. Surrender is a declaration that your value is not tied to how much you withstand. Too often, people confuse carrying heavy weights with being strong. They believe that enduring pain silently is a sign of maturity, but even the strongest trees bend when the wind is too fierce. Even the ocean pulls back before it gathers the strength to rush forward again. To surrender is to follow the rhythm of nature itself, a cycle of release and renewal. It is understanding that the body breaks when pushed too far, the heart shatters when stretched too thin, and the mind fractures when overloaded. Strength is knowing when to pause before you break. Strength is knowing when to breathe before you fall apart. When you surrender, something extraordinary happens within your spirit. You create room for peace to return to you, room for clarity to rise within you, room for healing to begin its quiet work. Worry takes up space in the heart like clutter in a home. It blocks the light, it crowds the air, it suffocates the soul. When you release that worry into God's hand, you invite divine order back into your life. You create space for new solutions, new opportunities, and new strength to emerge. Surrender is not passive, it is active trust. It is the decision to step out of fear and into faith, out of confusion and into wisdom, out of overwhelm and into the calm presence of the divine. The moment you surrender is also the moment you reclaim your power. It may sound paradoxical, but it is true. When you stop trying to control everything, you discover a deeper confidence within yourself. You realize that your spirit was never meant to be weighed down by battles you cannot win alone. You learn that surrender is not the end of your effort. It is the beginning of divine assistance. It is the recognition that your strength combined with God's strength becomes unstoppable. It is the understanding that the world does not rest on your shoulders. God's hands are far wider, far stronger, far more loving than your own. And when you place your burdens there, you rise. Surrender is strength because it transforms you. It humbles you in the gentlest way and lifts you in the holiest way. It reminds you that you are human, and being human does not mean being helpless, it means being held. When you surrender, you invite God to work in the places you cannot reach, to heal the wounds you cannot touch, to open the doors you cannot see. It is in the act of release that you discover how much you were meant to rest, how deeply you were meant to trust, and how beautifully life unfolds when you stop forcing outcomes and start flowing with divine guidance. Surrender does not make you fragile, it makes you free. There are moments in life when burdens grow heavier than our hearts can bear. Challenges arrive all at once, worries multiply, and the weight of uncertainty feels unbearable. In those moments, it is natural to feel small, powerless, and even defeated. Yet, it is precisely then that the truth becomes clear. You were never meant to carry everything alone. There exists a hand far stronger and infinitely wiser than your own, ready to hold the load that overwhelms you. God's hands are not distant or absent. They are constant, waiting to cradle your fears, to bear your sorrow, and to lighten your steps. To realize that your weakness does not define you, but rather invites divine support, is the first step toward true freedom. Life teaches us that human strength has limits. You can push yourself, endure pain, and persist through struggle, but there is a point where your own might cannot reach. It is in these moments that surrendering to God's hands becomes not only necessary but sacred. To place your struggles, your failures, and your insecurities into divine care is not an act of laziness or passivity. It is an act of courage. It requires humility to acknowledge that some burdens are too vast for the human spirit to carry alone. When you entrust what you cannot manage to God, you are taking the bold step of trusting a higher wisdom, a perfect timing, and an unwavering love that transcends every limitation you face. When you hand over your heaviest concerns, a subtle peace begins to fill the space that fear once occupied. Anxiety, doubt, and desperation lose their grip when you allow God's hands to intervene. Imagine a traveler exhausted by a steep climb, struggling with each step, only to have a guiding hand lift the weight from their shoulders. That is how life changes when you place your impossible burdens into divine care. Suddenly, the path does not seem as treacherous. Obstacles that once loomed large shrink in perspective, and the realization dawns: you were never alone and you never needed to be. Strength does not come only from within. It comes from knowing that God is always carrying part of your journey alongside you. Trusting God with what you cannot carry also brings clarity. When you release the weight of your worries, your mind is no longer clouded by fear or distraction. You begin to see your life with a sharper focus, to discern solutions where before there were only problems. Your steps become steadier, your heart lighter, and your spirit more resilient. The burdens you surrendered do not disappear in chaos. They are held with divine precision. God's hands cradle your pain, your doubts, and your unanswered questions, transforming them into lessons, growth, and eventual triumph. The beauty of divine support is that it does not remove responsibility. It magnifies your ability to handle what is meant for you while carrying what cannot be carried alone. There is a deep sense of liberation in knowing that God's hands hold what you cannot. It is the knowledge that while you may stumble, falter, or grow weary, there is a constant strength supporting every effort, every prayer, and every tear. Even when the storms of life rage and the winds of misfortune howl, divine hands steady you. You do not need to force solutions, wrestle endlessly with outcomes, or shoulder burdens that crush your spirit. Instead, you are invited to trust, to let go, and to allow God's wisdom and power to fill the gaps that human effort cannot reach. In this act of surrender, you experience a freedom and a peace that is unmatched, a sense of assurance that you are never alone in your trials. Finally, recognizing that God's hands hold what you cannot carry is transformative because it shapes the way you live daily. When your faith in divine support grows, fear diminishes, and hope flourishes. You learn to approach challenges not with panic, but with patience. You learn to face the unknown not with dread, but with confidence. And you learn to embrace life not with resistance, but with trust. Every burden you place in God's hands becomes a stepping stone toward growth, a channel for grace, and a reminder that no trial is too great when lifted by a power greater than yourself. In this sacred exchange, you discover that surrender is not weakness, and help is never too far away. Life rarely moves in straight lines. Often, we find ourselves waiting, wondering why things are not unfolding as we expected. The heart aches when plans stall, dreams seem postponed, and life feels uncertain. Yet, it is precisely in these pauses and detours that the deepest lessons are hidden. Delays are not denials, and detours are not punishments. They are part of a divine orchestration that shapes your journey, teaching patience, refining character, and redirecting your steps toward what is truly meant for you. When you begin to see these interruptions not as obstacles, but as guidance, you gain the courage to trust the timing of God's hand. Every delay carries a lesson in patience. We live in a world of instant results and constant movement, yet the most profound growth often comes in waiting. When life slows down, you are invited to pause, to reflect, and to prepare. It is a time to strengthen your spirit, nurture your heart, and gather the wisdom necessary for the next chapter. Just as a seed requires time beneath the soil before it blossoms, your dreams need patience, your plans need nurturing, and your journey needs space to unfold. Delays are not the absence of progress. They are the quiet preparation for a breakthrough that would not have been possible otherwise. Detours, too, are not without purpose. When the path you imagined is blocked, life often nudges you in a new direction. This may feel frustrating or disorienting at first, but every detour carries an opportunity for growth and discovery. Sometimes detours lead you to people who teach you lessons you could not have learned alone. Sometimes they lead you to experiences that shape your resilience, your character, or your faith. And sometimes detours protect you from paths that may have seemed right, but were not aligned with your highest good. Trusting the unseen purpose behind these twists and turns allows you to embrace the journey, even when it seems uncertain. Delays and detours also teach you discernment. When things do not happen according to your timetable, you are forced to reconsider your expectations, to evaluate your desires, and to weigh the intentions behind your choices. This period of waiting becomes a mirror, reflecting the areas of life where growth is needed and highlighting the values that truly matter. In doing so, you cultivate a wisdom that cannot be rushed, a clarity that emerges only when you stop forcing the narrative and begin listening to the divine guidance woven into every pause. It is through delays and detours that your faith is strengthened. When life seems to stall, when plans are postponed, and when opportunities seem distant, you are challenged to trust in the greater design. Faith is not believing that life will be easy. It is believing that life will be purposeful. When you accept that every delay and every detour is part of a larger plan, you stop resisting the process and start partnering with it. You begin to see that God's timing is perfect, that what arrives may be different than expected, but is always exactly what you need. Each pause and shift becomes a reminder that you are being guided, protected, and prepared. Finally, understanding the purpose behind delays and detours transforms your perspective on life. You begin to move with patience rather than frustration, with trust rather than fear, and with hope rather than despair. You start to see setbacks not as failures, but as courses of preparation. You realize that what appears to be a delay may actually be the beginning of something greater than you imagined, and that what seems like a detour may lead you to the very destiny you were meant to reach. In the hands of God, every pause, every twist, and every unexpected turn is not random. It is intentional, guiding you toward your highest purpose with love, wisdom, and grace. Fear is one of the most human experiences we carry. It creeps quietly into our thoughts, whispers doubts into our hearts, and makes the future feel uncertain and unsafe. Yet fear, as natural as it is not meant to define us. Faith is the force that transforms fear into courage. It is the light that penetrates the darkness of doubt, the anchor that steadies the soul when storms rage, and the gentle whisper that reminds us we are never truly alone. Faith does not eliminate fear, but it reshapes it, turning trembling into bravery, hesitation into action, and anxiety into trust in something greater than ourselves. When we confront fear with faith, we begin to see that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Every moment of fear is an invitation to reach deeper within, to lean on God's strength, and to step forward knowing that we are held. Faith provides the lens through which fear is no longer overwhelming, but manageable. It allows us to take one step at a time, knowing that each step is guided, supported, and purposeful. In this way, faith becomes a bridge, carrying us from the shadows of doubt to the light of confidence, even when the path is unclear or the outcome unknown. Faith transforms fear because it shifts our focus from what might go wrong to what is possible. When fear dominates, the mind lingers on obstacles, threats, and failures. When faith leads, the heart is drawn toward hope, resilience, and opportunity. This shift does not deny reality. It simply changes the way we approach it. By trusting in a higher power, we gain the courage to face challenges we would otherwise avoid. Fear becomes a signal, not a stop sign, a reminder to rely not solely on our own abilities, but on the strength and wisdom of God to guide our steps and fortify our hearts. Moreover, faith teaches us patience in the face of fear. When fear threatens to paralyze us, faith reminds us that divine timing is at work. We do not need to rush, force, or control outcomes, because what is meant for us will unfold in its perfect season. This patience softens anxiety, allowing courage to rise naturally from a place of trust rather than desperation. Faith provides a steady rhythm for the soul, a cadence that reassures us that even when circumstances feel uncertain, we are moving exactly where we are meant to be. Courage grows as we wait, as we trust, and as we act with conviction rooted in divine support. Faith also empowers resilience. Fear often arises from the unknown, the uncontrollable, and the unpredictable aspects of life. But when faith becomes our foundation, we are able to face uncertainty with unwavering resolve. Setbacks are no longer insurmountable, mistakes are no longer permanent, and challenges are no longer terrifying. Courage emerges as we understand that, with God's guidance, we have the strength to endure, the wisdom to navigate, and the fortitude to rise again after every fall. Faith transforms fear by teaching us that every obstacle is not an endpoint, but an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and braver. Finally, faith transforms fear into courage because it instills hope that is unshakable. When fear surrounds us, hope may seem fragile or distant, but faith acts as a beacon, illuminating a path forward. It reminds us that even in our most fearful moments, there is a hand holding us, a purpose guiding us, and a future filled with possibilities beyond our imagination. Courage born from faith is enduring because it does not depend on circumstances, outcomes, or control. It is rooted in the unwavering certainty that God's presence accompanies us, protects us, and empowers us to move forward boldly, no matter how daunting the journey may seem. Surrender is often misunderstood. Many think that to surrender is to give up, to step aside, or to admit defeat. But in reality, surrender is one of the most powerful acts of faith a person can perform. When we release control over our worries, our plans, and our expectations, we create a sacred space within ourselves, space that allows blessings to enter. Life cannot flow fully into a heart that is tightly clenched with fear, anger, or resistance. By surrendering, we unclench, and in that opening, the abundance of grace begins to pour in, often quietly, often unexpectedly, and always perfectly timed. The act of surrender clears the clutter of the heart. Our minds are frequently crowded with endless thoughts, worries, and what-ifs that weigh heavily upon us. These mental burdens block the light of opportunity, keeping us from seeing the paths that lead to growth, joy, and fulfillment. But when we consciously place our burdens in God's hand, we make room for insight that had been buried under anxiety, room for peace that had been masked by doubt, room for blessings that had been waiting quietly for us to be ready. Surrender is not passive. It is an active clearing, a preparation of the soul for all that is good. Surrendering also opens us to the unexpected. Blessings rarely arrive in the packages we anticipate. They come in forms we might not recognize, through people we never expected, or from situations that initially seemed like obstacles. When we hold too tightly to control, we often miss these gifts. But surrender allows life to flow in its divine rhythm. It teaches us to trust that what is meant for us will not be lost, and that what we need most will arrive in the right moment. By releasing rigidity, we discover the freedom to embrace the surprises, the twists, and the miracles that come from a loving and wise Creator. Moreover, surrender nurtures gratitude. When we stop resisting, complaining, or questioning every outcome, we begin to notice the subtle blessings already present in our lives. A gentle sunrise, a supportive friend, a kind word from a stranger. These are the whispers of grace that often go unnoticed when our hands are full of worry and resistance. By surrendering, we open ourselves to the richness of life and cultivate a heart that sees goodness everywhere. Gratitude itself becomes a blessing multiplier, amplifying joy and inviting even more abundance into our lives. Surrender also fosters faith in the unseen. It teaches us that we do not need to have all the answers, control every outcome, or plan every detail. By stepping back and entrusting our lives to God, we affirm that divine wisdom knows what we cannot yet understand. This trust allows blessings to move in ways beyond our imagination. We begin to notice that what once felt like delay, loss, or struggle was actually preparing the way for greater things. Surrender shifts our perspective, helping us see that blessings are often wrapped in patience, hidden in timing, and revealed through faith. Finally, surrender empowers us to live fully in the present. When we stop clinging to outcomes, grudges, or fears, we open ourselves to the richness of each moment. The present is where life truly unfolds, where relationships deepen, where joy is felt, and where miracles occur. Surrender creates the space within our hearts for blessings to manifest in ways we could never orchestrate ourselves. In that space, life begins to flow freely, love grows unimpeded, and grace becomes tangible. Surrender is not weakness. It is the conscious choice to trust, to release, and to allow the fullness of God's blessings to enter and transform our lives. Life can feel heavy, unpredictable, and isolating at times. There are moments when the path ahead seems unclear, when obstacles appear insurmountable, and when your heart feels lonely despite the presence of others. In those moments, it is easy to forget a profound truth: you are never walking alone. No matter how solitary your journey may seem, there is a constant, guiding presence that surrounds you. A hand unseen, a strength unfailing, a love unending. This is the presence of God, carrying you through trials, guiding you through uncertainty, and walking with you even when no one else seems to understand. Recognizing this truth is the first step toward courage, peace, and unwavering hope. The awareness that you are never alone changes the way you perceive challenges. Life's burdens feel less overwhelming when you know they are shared with a power far greater than yourself. Fear loses its grip, anxiety softens, and hopelessness begins to dissolve. When the weight of responsibility, grief, or uncertainty presses upon you, God's presence acts as a steadying force. Like a parent guiding a child across a busy street, a trusted friend holding your hand during a storm, or a lighthouse standing firm against turbulent waves, the divine never leaves your side. This knowledge does not always remove obstacles, but it transforms how you navigate them, instilling confidence, resilience, and grace. Even when the journey seems long and arduous, you are supported in ways you cannot always perceive. Often, signs of guidance appear subtly: a comforting word, an unexpected opportunity, a moment of clarity, or a quiet intuition. These are not coincidences. They are reminders that you are accompanied, watched over, and led by a higher power. You begin to understand that no setback is permanent, no detour is wasted, and no struggle is meaningless when God walks beside you. In this partnership, you discover a strength you never knew you had, and a hope that endures even through life's darkest valleys. Recognizing that you are never alone also fosters courage. When we internalize this truth, we are empowered to face challenges that might otherwise paralyze us. The fear of failure, rejection, or loss loses its intensity when we remember that God is present. We step forward with greater confidence, knowing that we are held, guided, and supported. Courage is no longer about fighting alone. It is about trusting that every step, every decision, and every action is accompanied by divine strength. This trust allows us to take risks, pursue dreams, and embrace change with a heart open to possibility. Moreover, the awareness of God's constant presence cultivates peace. Life is filled with uncertainty, and the unknown often breeds anxiety. Yet, when you remember that you are never walking alone, worry loses its grip. There is a calm in the heart that comes from understanding that you are guided, protected, and loved unconditionally. Peace does not mean the absence of trials, but the assurance that you are never left to face them alone. Every challenge becomes a shared burden, every triumph a celebration with a loving presence by your side. This awareness transforms life from a series of struggles into a journey of trust and grace. Finally, knowing that you are never walking alone brings purpose and hope to every step you take. Each experience, whether joyful or painful, becomes part of a greater story, guided by divine intention. You begin to see that your life is woven into a tapestry of guidance, support, and love that extends beyond what you can see or understand. No matter the loneliness, no matter the uncertainty, no matter the fear, you are held, accompanied, and empowered. You are never truly alone, and this truth becomes the foundation for faith, resilience, and the courage to keep moving forward, trusting that every step is watched over and every moment is part of a greater plan. And so, as we stand here today, let us remember that life is not meant to be carried alone. Every burden, every fear, every moment of uncertainty can be placed into the hands of a power far greater than ourselves. Surrender is not weakness, it is strength. Faith transforms fear into courage. Delays and detours are not obstacles, but divine guidance. God's hands hold what we cannot carry, and when we release our worries, we create space for blessings to enter. And through it all, the most beautiful truth remains: we are never walking alone. So, lift your hearts, release your burdens, and trust in the path that is unfolding before you. Let faith be your companion, let hope guide your steps, and let love illuminate your journey. Life may not always go according to our plans, but every challenge, every pause, every twist is an invitation to trust, to grow, and to experience the profound peace that comes from surrender. Place everything in God's hand, your dreams, your fears, your failures, and your triumphs. For in those hands you are held, guided, and supported. And when you do this, you discover the truth that has always been waiting for you. That life, in all its beauty and complexity, is never truly yours to carry alone. It is meant to be shared, lifted, and guided by a love far greater than anything you could ever imagine. Step forward today with courage, walk with faith, live with hope, and remember, when everything is in God's hand, miracles are not just possible, they are inevitable.